I was home alone for the week, as my family had gone on vacation while I had to stay and work. It was around 2 a.m. and I'd stayed up to watch a scary movie in the dark in my basement. Suddenly, I heard footsteps on the first floor. This commonly occurred when my family was home. Every time they passed through the front hallway, past the basement door, I heard their footsteps. This time, I got scared. I turned the television off immediately. I heard the basement door handle click and turn as I sat in absolute darkness. I moved slowly and crawled behind our large television. As I passed it inch by inch, I noted with panic that its black screen still dimly glowed. I heard footsteps coming down the carpeted but creaky stairs. I froze in my hiding place, listening. For many long minutes, I heard nothing. Had the intruder seen the television's afterglow, or had it faded in time? Was he standing in the pitch dark listening for me? I seemed to lie there in total silence for a long time. My panic began to fade, and I began to think more clearly. Had I really heard an intruder? Could someone possibly be standing there in silence for so long without making any noise? If there was an intruder, he was still in the basement. I began counting in my head, trying to pass the time, as drool fell from my mouth onto the carpet. I didn't dare risk the sound of swallowing. I reached 60 seconds once, twice, 30 times, 60 times. By now, my fear had faded, and I was more confused than anything. I estimated I'd been crouched in the absolute black for almost 2 hours, and had still heard nothing. If there was an intruder, none of this made sense. Finally, I decided I'd have to make a move. If I did nothing, eventually the sun would come up and shine in through the small basement windows. And worse, I began to smell something horrible. I moved slowly toward the stairs, sticking close to the walls to avoid anyone in the dark. The bad smell got worse, making me wonder if something had died nearby, because no living person smells like that. Finally, I approached the stairs. Suddenly, there was a loud crash, like something big had fallen down. Without thinking, I started running out through the open basement and front doors. I knew for sure that someone was in the house now. I called the police from my phone and waited outside, watching my house nervously from a safe distance. The police came, checked inside the house, and then immediately came back out to question me. They'd found a body in the house. My elderly neighbor, who seemed to have died of a heart attack. Their belief was that I must have left the front door unlocked, and he must have wandered in my house while dying, looking for help. At first, I felt horrible, thinking that I had sat there in the dark while the old man literally died a few feet away. I suddenly thought, what was that sound of loud crash that made me run out of the house? When I asked the police, they told me something scary. The back door was also left open, and there was a footprint in the mud. Somehow, there was someone else in the basement with us, silent and waiting in the dark, right next to the old man's body. When I was a kid, my grandma and I moved to Washington. Our apartment complex was kind of scary, and the people who lived there weren't very friendly. We hardly knew anyone, and the ones we did know were either weird or up to no good. Our building had a big basement with laundry machines and storage rooms for each apartment. It was always creepy down there, with weird sounds and echoes bouncing off the walls. Plus, the heater made scary noises, like a cat crying, and everything there was odd and scary. My grandma never let me go down there alone when I was little. She said it wasn't safe, and she was probably right. A lot of strange stuff happened in that basement. People doing bad things or leaving behind weird stuff when they moved out. But as I got older, I had to start helping out more around the house. So, when I was about 15, my grandma asked me to move some old furniture down to our basement storage room. I didn't like going down there, but I had to do it. That's when I heard it. A strange knocking sound, like someone tapping on the walls. It was different from the usual noises, and it gave me a weird feeling. I told my grandma about it, and she said it sounded like the SOS signal in Morse code, which is a way to ask for help. We went back down to the basement to investigate, and the knocking was still there. We decided to call the police, just in case. They came and checked every storage room, and that's when they found her, a young woman trapped in a hidden room behind a big closet. It turned out she had been there for days, suffering and scared. The person who had trapped her was someone who lived in the apartment above us. He was doing terrible things to her, and she needed help. I felt scared and sad, knowing that something so awful was happening right under our noses. But I was also glad we found her and could get her help. It was a reminder that sometimes scary things can happen in unexpected places, and we have to look out for each other. When I was a kid, I lived with my grandma because my parents didn't have much money. My mom divorced when I was little, but she remarried soon after. Eventually, my parents bought a new house, but I chose to stay with my grandma because I liked the neighborhood and had friends there. Later, my grandma passed away, so I thought it would be a good idea to live with my mom and stepdad for a while. So I moved into the basement of my mom's house. The basement had a nice setup, with an entertainment room and a wet bar that my stepdad had built. But soon after moving in, I started feeling something strange. Every night I felt like something was watching me, especially near the wet bar. It made me feel scared and uncomfortable. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but the feeling kept getting stronger. It felt like whatever it was getting closer to me. I tried different things to make it stop. I left doors open for light, thinking it might help, but it didn't. The feeling just kept getting worse, like it was trying to get into my room. It made it hard for me to sleep. I tried using a nightlight, hoping it would help me feel safer, but it didn't make a difference. The feeling of being watched continued, and it felt like it was getting stronger every night. One night, I finally saw something. It was my mom, crouched down in the middle of my room, staring at me with a strange smile on her face. I was terrified. I couldn't understand why she was there, or what she wanted from me. I locked myself in my room and tried to forget about it, but I couldn't. The next day, my mom acted like nothing had happened. It was as if she didn't remember being in my room at all. I was too scared to confront her about it, so I tried to pretend like everything was normal. Finally, I got married and decided to move to a new place. I thought it was all over. But then I got a strange note from my mom at my wedding saying, "I'll always be with you." It gave me chills. Even after my wedding, I woke up one night and I saw that my mom was trying to open my door at my new place. It was like the scary feeling never went away. It made me wonder what was really going on with my mom.